left-wing media, their whole movement really got absolutely pulverized in the Oval Office today, and I'm so glad it played out on live TV with President Trump sitting right next to another world leader and El Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele, because I want as much international exposure as we can get for how far off the reservation left-wing media and Democrats have gone. The big moment came when CNN's Caitlin Collins started asking questions about this guy that she clearly cares so deeply about. That is deported El Salvadorian national Maher Garcia. He's the guy the left is trying to create this narrative that the poor old innocent people they're being rounded up in vans and deported out of the country. The only reason they have an argument for any of this right now is a clerical error, but that's been rectified. The left wants to connect the Trump administration to Nazi Germany, some kind of wacko regime so bad, but in doing so, they're only making themselves look really bad. So after Collins asked her question, President Trump deferred to our AG, Pam Bondi. Here was her initial response.
He had been illegally in our country, and in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him.
This guy you see on the screen is an MS-13 gang member. You heard the Attorney General, and actually, he's a terrorist because MS-13 has been deemed as a terrorist organization by President Trump. This is who the left is fighting for. This is what their movement has been reduced to because they hate President Trump so bad. Anyways, President Trump asked Stephen Miller to chime in, clarify. He took things a step further.
That meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States.
Look, I don't need to hear any more about this. Case closed. He got deported. There was a clerical error made by the administration, but the guy is gone. He was here illegally. He is a citizen of El Salvador, the country he is from. So in order to bring this guy back to the United States, the president of El Salvador, he would have to deport one of his own people back here to the USA who has already been determined to be a part of a terrorist organization. As I said, this is completely nuts. Here's the president of El Salvador. Caitlin Collins actually asked him if he has plans to bring him back here. Here was his response.
Do you plan to return him?
How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States?
You heard him correctly. Yes, that's right. The president of El Salvador would have to smuggle a gang member back into the U.S., deport his own citizen back into our country. I wanted to really hammer this home tonight because it's ludicrous. Look, that guy, he's never coming back, period. That's the end, and he shouldn't. But CNN shouldn't be trying to create this narrative that the Trump administration is rounding up people blindly because they're minorities and then shipping them out. That is wrong, but that is the reality we now face. Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're going around in what appears to be a test for building a ticket in the next presidential election. That's really what this is all about, if you can believe that. AOC said this.
We are watching our neighbors, students, and friends being fired, targeted, and disappeared. It is real. Our coworkers, U.S. citizens and immigrants alike, are being disappeared off the street by men in vans with no uniform.
That is so distorted. That is just rhetoric, fear-mongering, and it's false. What citizens? I'd like to know that. What citizens have been deported? Remember, they were all up in arms over the egg prices. It was mass hysteria. Where did that argument go? What about the stock market crashing? Oh, wait, it didn't. It went down for a couple of days. Then it rebounded. It is really wrong what they do. And lastly tonight, I want to pivot to this. Most likely you know who Bill Maher is. He hosts a pretty popular show on HBO. In the past, it's been no secret he's not the biggest fan of President Trump and vice versa. President Trump has not been the biggest fan of Bill Maher. But recently, Maher went to D.C. to visit the president after their mutual friend, Kid Rock, he set it up. And you know what? Apparently, it went pretty well. So I'm going to jog through some of the comments Maher made after the fact.
I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around him. And honestly, I voted for Clinton and Obama, but I would never feel comfortable talking to them the way I was able to talk with Donald Trump. That's just how it went down. Make of it what you will.
The media has tried to portray our president as this villain for years. From a distance, though, their woke lens. Seeing it through that, Maher, he didn't experience that.
Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy.
The reason that guy wasn't there is because he doesn't exist. I think that's because when President Trump is in front of the media, he's largely, almost entirely actually, he always has to play defense, defending himself all the time for years. He has been asked some of the nastiest questions you can think of. When Joe Biden was being asked questions like, what flavor ice cream did you get, President Biden? You remember that? I do. I don't forget about that. And here's the last bite from Maher I want to play.
I've had so many conversations with prominent people who are much less connected, people who don't look you in the eye, people who don't really listen because they just want to get to their next thing, people whose response to things you say just doesn't track, like, what? None of that with him. And he mostly steered the conversation to, what do you think about this? I know, your mind is blown, so's mine.
My mind's not blown. I doubt any of you watching, your mind is blown either. He's a decent guy, very successful, actually. That's who you would want running the country. For years, the media on the left, when interviewing President Trump, they've seen it as an opportunity to attack. I know who these people are. They're in my industry, just like Caitlin Collins did today, but it backfired. With another world leader sitting right next to him. CNN looked stupid today. They really did. Even more stupid in other things we're about to show you. Look, I'm totally fine when President Trump meets their attacks with comebacks, comments like this.
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN. Low-rated.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.